This video is for entertainment and demonstration purposes only. Please consult a certified automotive technician for your automotive needs. I know I haven't posted anything in a while. I've been busy. But anyway, I want to show you what I was up to here. And yep, while it rarely happens, or not as frequently as with the Cobalt, yeah, the Corolla's in pieces. But I'll show you exactly why. See, it really sucks what happened here. The other side was the real offender. So these pads and these rotors here had some decent meat on them, but all I was getting was a lot of pulsation. And then I noticed sometimes the rear brakes towards the back was overheating, or it was wearing rapidly, and I was constantly adjusting it, and that was the sign that maybe the calipers had hung up, and that's why the rear brakes were getting so overworked. And then it reached a point that all I was getting pulsating and actually losing more and more stopping power. The piston pulled back, or it pushed back rather, but I still couldn't get the bracket to move. And the pins inside this caliper is what is hung up here. I still have this suspended, but I'm replacing all of this here, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. Alrighty then, so let me show you some of the goodies I got. This is a completely remanufactured brake caliper here. These are 13mm sockets that you use to get these off. You do have to separate them so you can get the pads on these properly after you put the rotor on. Here's the new rotor. And I've had great experience with the CarQuest brand over the years. So here's the new rotor, 2-year warranty on it. Here's new brake hose, also from CarQuest. And the calipers also came with the hardware kit. Now this is one. Now I already done the other side. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But I threw it in this brake hose bag. Good for extra hardware because the calipers also come with the copper washers for the banjo bolts, but you're not going to really need them. And then here is the hardware for the caliper that the caliper comes with, right here in this bag. So let me show you now what the other side looks like and how it should look after. So here's what it is when it's all complete. Yes, these are the stock lug nuts I saved that you can use backwards to hold the rotor up against the flange. Yep, here's the new caliper with the new pads. That greenish looking stuff is the synthetic brake grease. I gotta do a little more bleeding of the system. Your new hose. And I'll show you what to do about all this craziness there. It's not as bad as you think. And right up to the brake line by the strut. And get my flashlight there. I'm getting in my own way, but here it is. And here is what it should look like. Now, I showed you all the components involved. Now, let's show you how I got there. Alright, so you're going to see me put stuff in. Removing it's going to pretty much be the reversal. And remember, I'm making my videos for people who are already mechanically inclined. I'm just giving you some tips and ideas and things to consider when you do this. Now, make sure this hub flange is nice and clean. You can use some coarse sandpaper if you want, or medium. Remember, this is hardened steel. I happen to have this here. This is a 90-degree die grinder. This is a brown roll-lock disc, which I got most of it here, and I even went on this side of the flange. You want to make sure you knock off any and all loose rust, because that rust can act like a shim and cause lateral run out, and you don't want that. And then to get where this couldn't get, you know, with the dexterity of my fingers, I just took some 150 grit sandpaper right here, cleaned around here, did some more with the die grinder, you know, getting, and you know, I mean, you don't have to polish it to a mirror finish. I've seen some people, and look, you don't have to go too crazy. This was a very clean hub to begin with, so it just didn't warrant what I'm about to propose here. You could, if you wanted to, you can hammer out all the wheel studs, and then you get the whole face of it nice and thoroughly with this, but that just wasn't necessary here. So that's the first thing you want to do. Alright, so you did that. That's good. The next thing I did, take a little anti-seize. I want to get it right around the hub. And I also have my car and accessories, so I can turn this as needed, you know, when I'm ready to get to that point. You know, turn it 180 degrees, because, you know, you want to be able to take this rotor off the next time if you have to. Just make the car easy to service and keep it from rusting on. Alright, see how I'm doing that there? I guess you can put some up here if you want to. I mean, alright, and you see how I'm coating it? I don't know how well the camera's picking it up. I know the lighting is not the greatest here, but I think you get the idea here. Yeah, I was just having some dinner and I took care of some off-camera stuff, and if you're wondering where the caliper is, yeah, it's hanging from the hose that's going to get replaced anyway. So, got the new rotor, cleaned all the junk off of it. I got the backwards stock lug nuts. It's a positive hole, so you don't need any, the lug hole, so you don't need any washers, and just, very, very lightly, little by little, I'm just using a little electric impact gun. Not really trying to torque it to spec or anything, just trying to get it nice and slapped up against the flange here. 21 millimeter or 13/16. Ooh, this is putting up a fight. I guess 13/16 is just a smidge bigger than 21 millimeter. I think you get the gist of it here. Alright, so next we're at the caliper bracket. Now even though you have to separate it, they come packaged with the caliper. So these are the 13 millimeter bolts here. Already did that off camera. You're going to see these anti-rattle clips here. And you see the flange of this clip here. Alright, this is going to face downward. So this would be the caliper above it here. That's going to be your rotor. So essentially, the clip goes on here, like so. Come on. Should just snap right in. It's a little hard to do when I'm reaching over the camera. Ah! There we go. So that's how that goes in. And then after that, I got this Permatex synthetic brake grease lubricant. It's part number 24110. Not sure how well the camera's picking it up. It looks like the camera's misbehaving again. What you always do here. You don't need a whole lot. This is the synthetic grease here. But you want to lube up good where the tabs on the pad is going to go. And wipe off any that's going to possibly get on the rotor. You don't want that. But here's a couple of them greased up. I'm going to have to just do the rest of it off camera. But you get the gist of it here. So that's how you put the clips on. That's how you put them in the bracket. And then we'll bolt this sucker on in just a second. Alright, so I got the caliper bracket bolted on. That's going to use a 17 millimeter socket. And the torque varies so much here with the different models, because this covers 03 through 2011. All I'm going to say is refer to your proper service manual. Make sure you get the right service manual for the vehicle you're working on. In this case, I want to get mine for my Corolla here. Alright, this is the manual. I'm using Haynes, and it's manual number 92037. Go to chapter 9, 9-1. The first page, and that will tell you all the torque specs for all the components and the brakes involved. And again, the reason I'm not telling you that is because they vary by quite a lot. So get a proper service manual. That's all I can say on that. And of course, spin the disc. Wipe up what you have to. Make sure no grease got on the rotor that you put on the clips here. Alright, so when you put the pad in, now I had the bracket bolt on. I already did the inboard pad. You're clearly not going to be able to see that, so no point in filming that. But it's going to be likewise on the outboard, which you can see, and it's perfectly lit up. The best way to get into this is because it goes somewhat perpendicular, like so. And notice how I put grease on the tabs as well, on the end. And there you go. Perfect. Some bitch slid right in. And then I like to take a little more of this grease here and apply some on the shim. This is the nice thing about getting the platinum pads from CarQuest. Apparently everywhere else that's a separate item, which I think is total nonsense, but that's how they work it. So put plenty of grease on this shim here, and next we will bolt on the caliper. There is one thing I want to show because I am putting a new brake hose on it. And then you're going to screw this on. Obviously, you're going to make sure that the peg is resting in that little hole there. See, See, I can turn that by hand, so you know the threads are good. This particular case, it's a 12mm socket. Not a very long 3/8 strap, but this is the biggest you go. Don't use any impact tools. You will break these. So that's all you need. See, I'm not even grabbing it by the handle for full leverage. These also have a torque spec, so again, refer to your proper service manual for that. And then I'll show you what this is in a second. Alright, so here's what it looks like. Here's the caliper on there. And I want to correct myself right now. These are 12mm. And if you want to keep them from spinning, you use a 17mm open-ended wrench. But here's the whole kit and caboodle here. And next, you're going to see what's bolted to the strut. Of course, now it's too much glare, so what you're going to see is that little tab that you saw previously. Here's the one off the new brake hose. Now, this is the old one here. This is the new one. I threaded it behind the strut. Looks a little crazy, but don't worry. As soon as I unbolt it here, this is going to make sense. Now, yes, I'm using my electric impact gun. Now, you can use it to take it off, but obviously you don't use it to put it back on. Here's the nut here, or the bolt rather. Obviously I'm going to clean it with a wire wheel, put some anti-seize on it. And that should, and be careful when you sweep this down, you don't want to destroy your ABS wire here. But you saw how that got out of the way, and I'll pick that up in a second and show you how I did that. But that's what comes out. You have this tab for the ABS wire here that goes on the strut like this, and then this goes over it. But I'll show you again once I do the installation of the new one, but I want to point out that bolt first. This is the McPherson strut right here. Now up here you have the brake line and you have the brake hose, and then you have a flange in between, and the brake hose is keyed. So while this is still clipped in, you want to crack this loose with a 10mm flare wrench. Just like this one I have in my hand here. See? You want to slide it in, and you kind of go a little back for it until this is cracked loose. Obviously I don't want to get too much of this brake fluid on my undercoating, so I'm just going to tighten it back up quickly, but make sure you crack it loose. Again, I did that off camera. Get this little pry bar here. Sometimes the best way to get it off, because the pry bar has a little bit of that bend to it, and if need be you can slap this around a little bit if you have to. There we go. Not sure how well the camera's picking it up. It's very tight. Lighting is not the best, so this is what the clip looks like. I think the brake hoses should come with them, but it's just a piece of metal. Obviously, it's not going to go bad all the time. And then you're going to finish unscrewing this, right? You're going to unscrew this, and then you'll be able to pull this right through. And alright, so I got the new line in. The hole is keyed, and I'll show you in a moment on the old. Let me see how I'm banging it in now. See, now that clip is in, and then I'm going to take my 10mm flare wrench and tighten the sucker up. I mean, I already screwed it in some, and thankfully the rag jammed up behind it absorbed the brake fluid, so very little bit got on my undercoating. Just blasted with a little brake. So we're back outside. See how the end of the brake hose looks? You see I have some flat sides? Well, that's how the hole in that flange is keyed. And again, I just couldn't really get the camera under there and do it well lit. I would have to have like an example of an old strut. But you know you're in all the way when the flange here is pressed up against the other flange. And this little groove is going to be showing. And that clip that I was banging in, that's what goes in. Now, like I said, those particular hoses I bought, it didn't come with those clips, but they're all banged up and damaged. Obviously, you don't reuse them. That is something you should be able to buy separately, and if you can't, that's something the dealership would definitely have. But save these boxes. So obviously, you got the brake hose here, and on both ends here. So this is the ABS wire. It's going to go over the ABS wire, the brake hose, and behind the strut. And I got an angle of it right here. But you see how it's on. This is the bracket here. You can see the notch and the little hole. And this little peg here goes into that hole. but you see how this is arched over. So what you do is you're going to put it on over it like this on an angle for it to catch. There you go, see how it catches, and then that other peg in the hole keeps it from moving, just like so. And then you're going to put the brake hose over it now. Now you heard it click, because like that clip I was showing you up here, it's got the same kind of deal over here, so it seats in there. And then you're going to take this 14 millimeter bolt, and thread it through both of them. But just know that the flange, the mid flange of the brake hose goes over the flange for the wire. Alright, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm backing this bolt out so I can clean the threads and hit it with some anti-seize. Okay, just before I bleed the brakes and button this car back up, one of the significance of this video to one of the other significant other things is it proves that yes, at least on the front, you can get away with aftermarket, provided they're good quality, of course. The rears are a different story. Made under contract by TCM, I think they're called TCM. Very strict patents. Even the high quality brands like Bosch couldn't get it right. So when it comes to the back, the drums and shoes absolutely have to come from the dealership. However, you can get away probably with the springs, which I did. I used that combination. But again, you got to make sure the few instances where you can go aftermarket, you got to make sure you're using a good quality brand. So back to the fronts. Yes, this is what I did. This is what worked for me. And then I'll follow up tomorrow. Today is Friday, June 1st, 2018. I'm going to probably grab my dad or my brother. Just bleed out the brakes, see how things are. Obviously, test drive him, go easy on the brakes, let him burnish properly. And that's the other thing I want to point out. Oh, and one other thing, I'm sorry, but this is important. So you have a good, strong brake pedal. You want to make sure you don't have any excess slap in the back, no excess clearance. So if your drums are all pulsating and everything, make sure they're mended too, and your rear brakes are nice and tight. And you know they're properly tight when on the parking brake, you can come up with, you're nice and tight after just, 3 or 4 clicks. Which, that was the case for me. I made sure I did that already, so I know whatever it is all the front brakes. Because remember, you have new pistons. Alright, so we're in the next day now. It is Saturday, June 2nd, 2018. And the Corolla is finally back on her own 4 wheels. Bled the brakes. Got a little help with that. And here it is. Now I got to take it out and drive it, but everything felt nice and tight, and really, really grabby now. So, all right, well, I'm gonna go out and drive it and reveal to you my findings. And well, if you see the end of this video, then obviously it went well. So let's see that. Well, I'm at my usual spot at Florey's for my favorite drink. So, yep, all went well. Car's nice and clean. Hit the car wash, hit the bank, and I didn't go off a cliff and die in a fiery explosion, so I'm going to assume the test drive went alright and the brake job was a success. Equally successful is knowing that I got this whole job done for a little over the price of what just one caliper would have cost at the dealership.